On Wednesday, Denmark's foreign ministry summoned the top American diplomat in the country after a bombshell report by the Danish national broadcaster alleged that at least 3 US citizens with connections to President Donald Trump had been carrying out covert influence operations in Greenland. The revelations add to the unease in Denmark and Greenland over Trump's repeated and publicly stated ambition to bring Greenland, currently a semi-autonomous territory of Denmark, under US control, saying it's an absolute necessity for national security that the US was 100% going to get it one way or the other, and refusing to rule out using military force to do so. So in this video, we're going to take a look at these covert influence allegations, Trump's Greenland ambitions, and the increasingly troubled Denmark-US relationship. Never miss an episode and always feel in the loop by subscribing and ringing the bell. In case it needs to be made clear, while Greenlanders aren't completely happy with their current constitutional setup, they have in fact been on a slow path towards independence for a while, they do not want to be annexed by the United States. A poll from January demonstrated overwhelming rejection of a US takeover, with just 6% of Greenlanders supporting it. Politicians in both Greenland and Denmark have firmly voiced their opposition too, asserting that Greenland is not for sale. So what's all this about Americans trying to secretly influence things? On Wednesday, Danish public broadcaster DR reported that at least 3 Americans with connections to the Trump administration have been carrying out covert influence operations in Greenland, citing several unnamed Danish government and security sources. According to DR, one of the 3 men has been seen many times publicly alongside the US president, and has recently been eyed up for a role that could give him a say in US security policy, while the other 2 have previously worked under Trump. DR, which chose not to disclose their names, also says it's unclear if the men are working on their own initiative or by order of someone else. The first man apparently compiled a list of US-friendly Greenlanders while visiting the island, as well as collecting names of individuals opposed to Trump and getting locals to point out stories that could be used to cast Denmark in a bad light. The other 2 men have tried to nurture contacts with politicians, business people and citizens. DR says its sources assess that the goal of the men's activities is to penetrate Greenlandic society to weaken relations with Denmark and promote the idea of a US takeover. In a statement, the Danish intelligence service said that Greenland is a target for influence campaigns of various kinds that could seek to create division between Denmark and Greenland and amplify certain viewpoints. Danish Prime Minister Mette Frederiksen and her Foreign Minister said that any interference in internal affairs is unacceptable, a position which will be communicated directly to their counterparts in the US, with the Danish Foreign Ministry summoning the top US diplomat in the country for talks on Wednesday. In a statement, the US State Department said that the United States respects the right of the people of Greenland to determine their own future, adding that it does not control the actions of private citizens, and declined to comment on intelligence matters. One anonymous White House official was less diplomatic, saying, "We think the Danes need to calm down." Now, if you've followed the news, you'll have noticed that at the beginning of the year, Greenland was seemingly a much discussed focus of the Trump administration. Donald Trump Jr. visited in January, as did Vice President J.D. Vance in March, where in a speech at the US military base in Greenland, he criticised Denmark for failing Greenlanders, with Mette Frederiksen describing Vance's uninvited visit as unacceptable pressure. But it generally seemed like the focus on Greenland had died down, as attention turned to other matters. However, this new report has raised the issue once again, even if we don't yet know under whose orders, if any, the American men were allegedly working. It will certainly reinforce Danish and Greenlandic unease about the US's position. It was only last month that the Danish foreign minister warned that Trump's Greenland ambitions were not over and done yet, and back in May, the Wall Street Journal reported that the US had ordered its intelligence agencies to step up its intelligence gathering efforts regarding Greenland, its independence movement, and attitudes to the US's objectives, prompting Mette Frederiksen to say, "You cannot spy against an ally." At the time, US Intelligence Director Tulsi Gabbard did not deny the report, but accused the paper of breaking the law and undermining national security. So, what's Denmark doing about all this? Since the beginning of the year, the Danish government has ramped up its efforts to counter Trump's ambitions and boost its own relationship with Greenland. On top of Danish plans to boost Arctic defence spending by more than $2 billion, the Danish military increased its presence in the Arctic this summer, with the deployment of 2 Merlin helicopters and a frigate to the island. The Danish government has also announced a $130 million boost to Greenland's justice sector, unveiled a slew of initiatives to combat racism and discrimination against Greenlandic people, and stated its newfound willingness to invest more in Greenlandic infrastructure projects. The Danish government has also rallied its European allies for support and solidarity. For example, French President Emmanuel Macron visited Greenland in June alongside Mette Frederiksen as a show of unity, during which he said of Trump's Greenland ambitions, "That's not what allies do." It's also notable that on the day the DR report came out, in which it said that the American men were seeking negative stories about Denmark, Prime Minister Frederiksen made a long-awaited official apology to thousands of Greenlandic Inuit victims of a forced contraceptive campaign run by Denmark in the 20th century. But the Greenland issue is not the only source of tension between the US and Denmark. Just last week, as part of its rolling back of wind energy, the Trump administration issued a stop work order on a $1.5 billion offshore wind farm being developed in Rhode Island by Danish company Ørsted, which is 50.1% owned by the Danish state. Trump's halting of the project, which was 80% completed, sent the already struggling company's share price plunging to a record low, from which it's only partially recovered. The announcement came just hours after Denmark's foreign minister appeared alongside California Governor Gavin Newsom, one of Trump's major political opponents, to sign an agreement on climate and technology cooperation. The saga has prompted Danish fears that Ørsted is collateral damage of both Trump's Greenland ambitions and a domestic political rivalry. All this highlights the difficult situation Denmark's in. As the Financial Times put it, how do you navigate an alliance with a superpower that starts acting like a threat? The fact that Denmark's willingness for greater security cooperation with the US in Greenland and beyond, as well as Greenland's willingness to work with the US on defence, trade and natural resources, has not been enough to satisfy Trump, points to a significant driver of Trump's ambition being the prestige and optics of territorial expansion, which makes Denmark and Greenland's job of countering it a whole lot harder. Now, Denmark's apology for historic forced contraception in Greenland has been covered across the media landscape, with 95 sources reporting on the story. Taking a closer look, you can see that 11 of these sources come from the right, and 25 of them come from the left. It's clear that there are some vast differences between each side of the political spectrum, with right-leaning coverage spotlighting political motives, and left-leaning outlets underscoring the historical injustice. We're able to get this in-depth analysis thanks to our sponsor this week, Ground News, a website and app that collects articles from around the world, helping you burst your media bubble. For every story just like this one, you're able to see just how many sources are reporting on it, as well as where those sources fall politically. And that's important, as the same story can take a completely different meaning depending on how it's framed to us. Something that we find helps us tackle this problem even further is their fantastic blind spot feature, a newsfeed dedicated to showing us which stories are improperly covered by one side of the political spectrum or the other. Here you can expand your own viewpoint, or simply help you understand someone else's media reality. It's no secret that the current media landscape is constantly trying to capture your attention and sway you one way or the other. So, having a tool that helps you understand bias and how it affects the media you consume is extremely crucial. If you're interested in staying on top of the news and want to explore more of the amazing features Ground News has to offer, we're offering 40% off the Unlimited Access Vantage Plan subscription by using the link in the description or scanning the QR code on screen. This offer is only available here, so make sure you go to ground.news/TLDR or click the link in the description to get started today.